Welcome back to the Success Shift, everybody. We're here. We cultivate entrepreneur confidence. This show is designed to give you guys the strategies, the stories, and the journey of entrepreneurship. Today, we have an amazing guest on that I've been looking forward to talking to and to meeting for quite some time now. And his story is something special. And so I'm definitely not going to be the one to tie it, but his name is Craig Sotkovsky. And if I pronounce that wrong, I'm horrible with that. And I'm actually going to let Craig fix that for me. But his niche is mindset, right? And he's a mentor to many in the entrepreneurial space. But the reason why I've been so excited to have this individual on the show is because Craig has done a lot in life. And one of them being the aspect, and this show is going to get really real for everybody because Craig was actually a part of 9/11. And for me, I've been extremely excited to have this conversation because 9/11 is actually my birthday. 9/11 is a big reason on who I am, and why I am, and the reason why I joined the military in the first place. And so to have Craig on the show really is exciting to me. And for everybody listening and watching right now, this is going to get extremely real for you. But Craig was a helper during 9/11, pulling people from the rubble, cleaning up, and doing everything that went on at New York City for that time. And so with that being said, Craig, welcome to the show. And I know I butchered your last name, so please tell everyone how to pronounce your last name correctly. Welcome to the show, Craig. Tell the viewers and listeners a little about you.
Thanks, Colby. I appreciate it. My name is Craig Sotkovsky. 9/11 responded to the World Trade Center. I didn't pull people out. We were part of the cleanup. I gotta emphasize that. One of tens of thousands that are sick and dying from our exposure to 9/11. And my voice, while I still have it, is to help audiences and people around the world understand that you don't have time. You have to execute on your ideas. What I have figured out is most people feed fear time, and it helps or hinders whatever it is that you're looking to do. If you're going to put the energy into something, make it worthwhile. Don't mess around in your life. And I see that a lot. Going through cancer and surgeries and like a whole bunch of nonsense. What I realized was I got stuck into this mindset of being a victim, of woe's me and why is this happening to me? And, and it develops something really bad when you're an earner and you can't earn. So it comes into your mindset as I'm a loser. Being an entrepreneur helped me because I realized all the things that I was going through while I was battling cancer and surgeries and procedures, and this went on for 10 years. And what I want to share with people more than anything, like I said before, is you have to get out of your head. You have to believe in yourself wholeheartedly, 1,000%. You have to overcome all of the stinking thinking that you have, the emotional insecurities, the self-sabotaging behaviors. And the only reason why I talk about them is because I was there. I've been there. I've been in bed for a month, weeks. And it just devastates you. It devastates your family. It devastates, your outside world. And then what I've learned is how to control my inside world. And that's one of the biggest things I want people to understand. It doesn't matter what your story is. People and people might think this is callous, but if you've been sexually abused, if you've been trafficked, if you've been a multi-millionaire entrepreneur that went broke, whatever it is, that's a story that you're emotionally attached to. And you have to get out of your emotional attachments to past circumstances and experiences if you want to flourish in life. If you want to become the person that you are meant to become and not what society has made you, you have to get out of your stinking thinking. And that's one of the things that's primarily the only thing I help people concentrate on. You know, the entrepreneurship, the real estate and all that, those are just genres that you make money in, right? Currency. But if you don't have the head for it, if you don't have, I help entrepreneurs that go from a 9 to 5 into entrepreneurship, and it's an entirely different way of thinking. You know, you have to know what you're capable of, how much bullshit that you can take, how much nonsense, because the outside world is going to keep coming at you. It's Murphy's Law. You know, you're gonna run into circumstances that are horrible, extremely devastating, and the only thing you're going to be able to control, because life is coming at you whether you want to participate or not, and the only thing you're going to be able to control is this. This is the only real estate that you can own. And a lot of people have other people living in their heads rent free. Circumstances, situations, whatever it is. We all dwell on things. There's nobody that has their shit correct 100%. And I repeat that over and over again because, you know, we're online. So everybody's like, oh, you know, you're looking at all the highlights of people. But as soon as somebody shuts off the phone or shuts off the camera, you don't know what their life is all about. I like to encourage people to talk about their not so famous successes, you know, the mistakes that they made. And that's what I talk about all the time. You know, we all make mistakes because we're doing something, right? What I have learned is you need to become the person during the process. I always hated the process. Once I started to love the process and I understood that who I was becoming during the process was the emotional journey, was the financial journey. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Craig, before we really dive into some things that I can't wait to talk about with your journey and your experience, tell us a little bit about, you know, 9/11 and the impact it's had on your life, right? Through the good and bad.
9/11, I think cancer is one of the best things that's ever happened to me because it woke me up. I mean, I've had experiences and circumstances before that were devastating until I hit cancer. And, you know, I was told that I was being treated for cancer 3 times and they were only right once, but I have the scars for all 3 times. And, you know, the physical devastation that cancer does to you. I had my mid and lower lung taken out in 2017, and 6 years later, I still feel the effects of it every day. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I have pain in my ribs and my back from the surgery because, you know, they cut all the nerves and everything like that. And people look at you and they're like, you know, you're fine. What's the matter with you? And I've had people like, you know, so what does it feel like? What does that feel like? You know, I'm like, physically? They're like, yeah, what do you experience? And so, well, you know, lay your ribs, you know, like this against the side of a table and take your arm away. And that's what it feels like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I've had people be like, that's horrible. It's like, yeah, it can be, but it's an experience. You know, I get to help people all around the world because what I've learned is something called epigenetics. How to turn on a heart and brain coherence, how to understand who you are as a being instead of somebody that's doing something. And, you know, how does 9/11 tie into all this stuff? It took me so long to get the crap out of my head and understand that I didn't want to tell a 9/11 story. I always thought I would get some success out of business. And it's kind of like I'm on all these podcasts and shows about 9/11 and how the human spirit becomes the story. How, you know, I can go from, in 2020, I had 8 surgeries and procedures. 2021, I had a knee ablation after 8 surgeries on my knee over the years. And the knee ablation gave me 3 blood clots that almost killed me. So it's always a new experience for every surgery and procedure that I go through. What I've learned over the years is how to control this, how to understand that I have to process the surgery before it even happens so I can start healing before it even begins. And that's what I want for people. I want people to understand that you can control this. That's the only thing you're going to have control over is how you view situations. And there's a lot of people now that are becoming entrepreneurs that think once they open up a business, that's it. That's the end all. That's their shining moment. Oh, I have a business. It's like, great. How much nonsense can you take? Because that business is going to crumble or succeed based on your mindset, based on all the stories that you keep telling yourself. And I'm sorry I'm going like in different directions, but an overall thing is, I think 9/11 was one of the best things that ever happened to me because I'm able to help, tens of thousands of people around the world. I started a company called From This Point Forward because from this point forward, whether you're seeing me or hearing me, I have to leave you better than when I first found you. And I think that's my ultimate message, is that you can overcome any situation as long as you control the emotional attachments that you have to circumstances and experiences.
Yeah. And it's funny is how much all this relates to something you said was it's all about experiences and stories, right? Well, I mean, 9/11 lives on because of experiences and stories. And that's the only way it will live on, is because of experiences and stories. You know, I said how 9/11 made it a part of me and who I am. I was born and raised in a very patriotic family, right? But my true patriotism came because of my birthday being 9/11. It really was the reason why I was so, I'm fascinated with 9/11 and the wars and everything that happened because of it. And, it really led me to want to fight for my country and support my country. And that is 100% the sole reason why I joined the military in the first place as well, was because of my patriotism for 9/11. And that day has molded so many, right? And it's crazy how one event can literally mold and form so many people's lives. Were you a entrepreneur before 9/11?
Yeah, I've been an entrepreneur since I'm like 5 years old.
Okay. So
Oh,
where
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, good.
Where were you when 9/11 actually took place?
So I came out of my house on First Street in Jersey City, um, in the morning, and I had a perfect view of the skyline, of the World Trade Center. When I was walking down the street, saw smoke. Went on another street for a direct view, and it was like the tower is on fire. Like, never saw that before. Never would even think that would happen. So I ran to get my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and I was like, get your camera, let's go." And we weren't that far from the river, the Hudson River, and World Trade Center is right across from the Hudson River. So we went down by the river, and it was like huge construction sites all over downtown Jersey City. That's when downtown Jersey City was in the boom phase, early 2000s. And we're there with people all over the place, sirens, just pandemonium. And my wife was like, "What do you think is going to happen?" And I was like, "Well, it looks like from this side, this is going to fall, right? But only the top part from where, And we watched the first one come down, and my wife has many pictures just like as it's coming down. Then we walked to Liberty State Park because the cops were freaking out. They're like, everybody get away, because nobody knew it was going to happen. Have like a tsunami across the river. We're right on the river. You know what I mean? Like, if everything collapses, so that's what's going to happen. So as we were going, there's this little crossway going into Liberty State Park from downtown Jersey City, and there she has more pictures of the second one coming down, and it's just like maybe a half hour, 45 minutes after that, or I don't really remember the timeline. But we're in Liberty State Park, and these ferries and boats come, and all of these people come off, and they're just stunned, beat up, bloodied, ash all over them. And I was like, I have to get there. Been in construction my whole life. I have to get there. And it took me 2 days to get there because they shut everything down, and it wasn't able to do anything. And I got there on I think it was the third day, and the fifth day. That's the thing. I was only there for 2 days, And what I had found out after was you only to get like medical and compensation, all that stuff, you needed to be there 4 hours out of the first 5 days, and I was there for 2 days out of the first five. After this happened, I didn't even think about it after that because we were in the process of moving down to Florida, and we were getting married in October. So it was like all kinds of pandemonium in our life as well because, you know, selling my house, moving down, and my partner's buying me out of another property. And it wasn't until 2012 I had pneumonia and a collapsed lung and couldn't figure out why. And after that, it was maybe a year, 6 months, I'd get pneumonia and pleurisy. And in 2016, I was sick literally for the whole year. And it kept telling me it was like COPD. And eventually I went to one doctor and he was like, you have looks like you have a malignant tumor in your lung. And he said that in front of my 11-year-old. And my natural instinct was to throat punch him. Because, I mean, you know, there's certain people in the medical industry that need to understand, have a little empathy. You know, you're telling my 11-year-old smart daughter that her father's got a malignant tumor. Eventually what happened was I got a rigid bronchoscopy and a flexible bronchoscopy, and I can't remember which one, but it was my 52nd birthday. I was being wheeled in for one procedure rather. And yeah, I can't remember which one, but they had nicked my tumor, and it started pumping all this nasty shit into my body, and I ended up getting sick for like a week. So that was brutal. And then eventually in 2017, I had a bilobectomy. They took my mid and lower lung out. And the funny thing was I was trying to mentally prepare this, and I had asked my thoracic oncologist, who's a really cool guy, Dr. Pickens. He was like, I asked him, I was like, so is this going to hurt? You know, because I had to mentally prepare for this. And he's such a cool guy, right? And I don't want people to take this in the wrong way, but he started laughing. And he was laughing, and as he's laughing, because we know each other's personalities, right? I had been to him a couple of times, and he was like, yeah, a lot. And he wasn't lying. He wasn't lying. I was one of those people that woke up like immediately after the surgery. I had surgery for 9 hours. And I woke up screaming because my blood pressure had gone down and they couldn't give me anything or else they would have killed me. And I remember for a couple hours just literally screaming. I was in so much pain. And my wife and my brother heard me, and my daughter was there as well, but she was sleeping, thank God. And it's been a fight ever since.
Wow. Wow. I mean, there's so much to talk and touch on that, and you know we'll probably have another conversation, Craig, and I'd love to know more. And this, I want to put a pin on this question that I'm gonna ask, and revert to it, because we talked a little bit before the show, right? And we talked about the mindset and just knowing that there's gonna be a barricade of things and stuff happening to you along the journey. And so that is your journey. There's a lot of reasons on, you know, why you could have quit, right? Or why you could have gave up, and played kind of that victim mentality that we were talking about. But before we get into that, what I really want to know is, you said that you've been hustling and grinding since you're about 5 years old. Where did entrepreneurship suit you? How did that come into your life? How did you know that it was going to be your choice?
You know, I always said, like, I grew up in, from I think when I was born to like 5 or 6 years old, I grew up in North Bergen, New Jersey. And right up the block was Hudson County Park, right? So we'd go play in the street and stuff. And I'm talking about, so this would be like early 70s. And, you know, you just left your house. Nobody cared. You know, you just stay on a block. Yeah. Well, our block ended up being Hudson County Park. So we were explorers, man. I mean, like we were explorers. We were the guys that were making, like, you know, the staffs and the bows and arrows and playing cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers, like all of this stuff. But we used the whole park. So Pleasant County Park had like football field, huge lake. Then it was like tennis courts, handball courts. We would go fishing. We'd be in the creek. We'd be looking for crayfish. And when the lights came on in the street, you were home. 5, 6 years old, nobody knew where you were. So I started developing this hustler mentality very early on. And it was always like hustling something for a nickel, dime, quarter, hustling my grandparents, and then I started lemonade stands, selling soda during the bicentennial. That's when I started moving into Cliffside Park, New Jersey, which is right on the river up on the cliffs. We were just always hustling something, selling chocolate, lemonade stand. We used to have a haunted house. My friend across the street from me, when I moved to Cliffside, he had this little shed in his backyard, and it had a little room, a little alleyway behind it and on the side of it. So we used to set up haunted houses during Halloween and stuff like that. It was really cool. Yeah, that was where I got my hustling instinct, man. Hustling in the bar, just going about whatever it is that I want to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so the hustle instinct came from 5, 6 years old. Did you like go to college? Did you start a 9 to 5? What was that transition like into full blown entrepreneurship?
I started working construction when I was 17. I grew up in the 80s. Real quick, sorry, going back. When I say 5 years old, my father was a truck driver. And it was when I was 5 years old that he took me with. And we were driving in, Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens. And we were, I was there to move boxes. And when I was moving boxes, I'd get hit off by my old man for some cash and change and stuff. I just wanted to throw that in there. I just forgot your question. Sorry, I'm rambling.
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead. Question was basically from there, the hustle and grind. Did you go into college first? Did you start a 9 to 5? What'd you do?
I went to college. Like I said, grew up in the 80s, and I was actually mixing cement with guys that graduated from Harvard. And they didn't have any jobs. So it was like, I always knew during high school, I wanted to hustle. Always just hustling something, and, no formal education. I worked for a fence company, a wood fence company, and we used to build retaining walls, decks, patios, and all of that stuff. And I was making more money than most parents at that time. And, that's when, as you start getting older, you start getting dumber, especially when you have a little bit of cash in your pocket, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where that life started, the partying, yeah, that kind of stuff.
Okay. So you started off in construction. Where was your transition into the entrepreneurship path?
So as I was in the fence company, I was getting side jobs too. That's where we started making money, because you're hustling the thing that you know how to do. And then as that progressed, I started putting in lolly columns and I-beams for a guy in Hoboken, New Jersey, into all the brownstones that are like multi-millions of dollars now. But back then, I couldn't understand why these guys would just they take the basements apart, put the lolly columns and steel beams in, and I just used to be like, why are you putting this into this dilapidated building, man? These buildings are garbage. And these are guys that I learned the best from that didn't really speak any English. They were Italians and Greeks. And, I'm 6'1", and at that time I was probably like 210, 220. And, I worked my ass off. I knew how to mix cement. I knew how to like put steel in columns and stuff like that. And it started to progress from there. And then I started understanding what they were doing, and I started doing it for myself in Jersey City. Started getting owner finance contracts and lease options and stuff like that back in the day.
Okay. So it all stemmed from construction and then doing the hustle on the side to make some extra cash. I feel like most entrepreneurs always have some sort of side hustle that they started. I know, like when I was younger, I probably did like 5 different things trying to make it right. And then there's this thing that you stick with, that ultimately ends up becoming your vehicle. What was your vehicle?
Real estate.
Real estate. How did you transform into the real estate industry?
Through construction, and then learning how these guys are commanding, how to controlling contracts. I learned really early that it was the contract and not so much the physical property that you wanted, right? It was
Yeah.
that mortgage that you wanted. And over the course of time, after 9/11, my wife and I moved to Florida, and I studied this course by Carlton Sheets, right? And everybody used to laugh at me. They're like, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. And well, that's how I bought houses, no money down houses, right? And we ended up, my wife and I ended up with like 30 doors, duplexes, single families, multi commercial. And in 2004, we got hit with 2 hurricanes in 3 weeks, Gene and Francis. When one came in and didn't do the damage, the next one came in and finished it off, right? So we had 30 doors, we have all of these tenants and all of these complaints, but we weren't able to contact the insurance companies because they were overwhelmed. So I started to learn how banking worked at that time. It was 2.5 years before we settled all the insurance claims and stuff like that. But I also learned their schemes, their scams. Right? Like they would send you a check that had you and the financial institution or whoever had the mortgage as two signatures, right?
Yeah.
So we'd sign off and send it to the bank, and then the bank would keep it because they had a lien on your property, right? So I learned all of that nonsense. And then I started speaking at convention centers and helping people understand what the con was. And it was always about like mortgage. Mortgage is the con. I mean, you're putting a property up for collateral on something that you just signed for. They know everything about you. And eventually, I hope people don't go through the devastations that we've gone through, but you learn more about this is the only real estate that you could own, because everything that comes at you have to be stoic, man. You have to, and I'm only saying this because I'm still learning this stuff. I'm 58 years old and I'm still learning about life. It's when you think you know everything, that's when you're going to get beat. And I was extremely arrogant because I was the guy with the information. So it was like getting accolades, like this guy's this and this guy's that. I actually believed my own headlines. And I think that's one of the worst things that entrepreneurs can do. So that's why when I mentor these young guys and stuff, it's the same thing. As soon as somebody makes a bunch of money, they get rid of the person that they need, that tells them what they need to hear instead of what they want to hear. And I think that's like the biggest lesson, is you have to keep those people around that are going to give you shit that you're going to learn from, that you are going to be like, oh man, I don't want to call him up because I know he's going to tell me the truth. You have to keep those people around. And I think that's like one of the most important things to learn as an entrepreneur is, always trust but verify. And that's what I tell everybody. If you're listening to me, just verify shit. Just understand that, I'm giving you my experience, right? But research everything, because I'm not the end all. I'm just the beginning steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on it, right? A lot of people, when they reach some form of success, they feel that they don't need to keep doing the things that got them there, right? Which is part of it, the mentorship that you had to get you there. And I think every mentor needs to have a mentor,
Absolutely. I have like 4 of them.
Yeah, right. Same. So it never stops ending. You're always having a mentor to get you to the next level, hold you accountable, tell you, what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Right. One of my mentors is very, very skilled when it comes to neuroscience. And if I say a word that is, or if I talk, he'll pull a word from it and extract it. And, he'll be like, you think? Or like,
Yeah.
instead of, yeah, exactly. Instead of objectively. So, so I love that aspect of things. NLP is a big part of me as well, just because of I got so fascinated with the objection of, how you can control your mind. And like you said, the most valuable piece of real estate you can have is right there. And so if this is the most valuable piece of real estate you could have, why are you not investing everything to develop it? Right.
See, that's the biggest hurdle. I'll talk to 100 people and I'll coach one. I'll mentor one. Because it's listening to what they're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always like, if I'm talking to somebody on the phone, I'll be like, send me a picture. Send me a picture of your face right now, because I read cues, right? So I'm speaking with you and I'm watching how you, all these micro and macro expressions, this is so fascinating to me.
Eye patterns.
Oh man. Just listening to how people speak about themselves by body language, and it's so fascinating to me, because it's always an ongoing conversation with yourself. To better yourself, you have to expose yourself, your vulnerabilities, what your habits are. That's one of the biggest things. Your habits. What do you do? I purposely like remember things and be like, oh man, I forgot. I need to brush my teeth with the left hand instead of the right. Or I'm going to grab a cup. And this is this is how people can learn, right? So however you pick up your phone when it's ringing, switch to hand. So if it's ringing and you always pick it up with your right, use your left. But do that 30 times. And on the 31st time, watch what happens. You'll automatically pick it up with your left hand. So we understand that we can do this. It's just all the outside nonsense. It's all the noise. I have eliminated most of the noise in my life. I go and work out every day. I have to walk every day. I have to go to the gym every day. And if I don't, I feel bad, because I know that's what's getting me to my next level. And there's all levels in this game. You're never going to know it all. Never going to know it all. But you're going to learn things. Like I just said, but. So somebody that's listening is like, oh, so he didn't believe what he said before that. No. I use however. However, it's always an ongoing conversation with yourself, man. That's the only way you're going to get out of your head, is by going in your head and really understanding what this is all about. The reticular activating system, how it wants to please you.
Yeah.
And for your audience, it's quick and easy, right? Think about the car of your dreams, right? Think about the color. Close your eyes, visualize it, and then watch what happens in the next 5 days.
Yeah.
See that? You'll see that car all over the place, man.
No kidding.
Because your activating system just wants to please you. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're actually. I had an episode a few weeks back. I don't remember when, but it was a solo episode where all I did was talk about the RAS. The RAS is like that VIP room in the club, to where it holds the special aspects of what you want to see. So the RAS is extremely powerful, and I think when people, and I'm gonna retract that. I'm gonna say I know when people start to utilize the RAS in their favor, your mind will go to wonderful works, to show you what's out there, to show you how to achieve it. I actually been talking with a friend of mine a lot about Lamborghinis. And I was in my backyard. We just moved, and I was in my backyard setting up the outdoor furniture. And sure, right, a Lamborghini pulls out of the neighborhood. So I was like, yep, there it is. But that is definitely your RAS going to work for you. And I think Grant Cardone said it best, right? He said, until you're extremely wealthy, stop trying to purchase real estate, right? Purchase the things that's going to develop your mind. Purchase the things that's going to get you to the next level. Do invest in yourself. Invest into the number one piece of real estate, which is your mind. And then the houses come later. All these people are trying to, there's the persona of you need to own real estate, you need to own real estate. And don't get me wrong, passive income through real estate is amazing. But just like Grant Cardone said, there's a time for that. And the time is not when you have just enough to do that. The time is when you are wealthy and it's a part of your avenue. But the number one thing you should be investing into is the number one piece of real estate, and that is your mind, right? And once I always, you want to say always, when I went into entrepreneurship, when I went,
the habit of saying it.
yeah, exactly. When I went into entrepreneurship and started my journey, personal development became a big aspect of it, right? The books, the audios, but there's a difference between books, audios versus doing the actual things that are going to trigger you at a different neurology, right? And for me, NLP was that. For me, hiring my mentor to push me through NLP, and not only through NLP, but through life, and checking my actions, right? Those investments is what tenfolded my mind in a matter of 6 months, first 2 years, right? Once I decided to do that, yeah, it
teach you.
Exactly. Right. Teaching and growing that mindset. So I think that's absolutely huge. I love that.
Yeah. One of the things that I do love is talk about rehabbing, right? You have to rehab. What neighborhood do you want to live in? You want to live in a luxurious neighborhood? Do you want to live in the ghetto? Well, that's our mindset. I'm always living on the beach. Always. I'm always thinking always. And somebody might be like, really? Always? Yeah, always. Because I don't have cancer anymore. And that's one of the things that like people really don't understand. When you get diagnosed with something, it devastates you, it devastates your family, it devastates your kids. You have to develop this first and foremost. Like, I used to think I was the biggest loser, piece of shit, because I couldn't do anything. I didn't even know where the light bill payments were going to come from. It's the food. I'm in bed. I can't move my legs. I cannot. And it's like, you cannot what? I cannot feel my body. I cannot just stand up because I'll fall over because my feet are numb. No, it's that kind of stuff. So what I did is I started learning all this marketing crap online, listening to everybody. But before that, I paid thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars when I lived in Hawaii, after Hawaii, on gurus, man. Tony was one of the best ones, right? While I was sick and going through surgeries, I had a fascinating mentor in Les Brown. Taught me, listen, you do this, this, and this, and you'll be the speaker. You'll be the guy. Ever since that happened, I'm speaking all over the world. And it humbles you because my message will be bigger than I ever will. People are like, oh, that's arrogant. No, that's just real life, man. I can be cocky, but I can take the hits as they come. I am influenced my mind to understand all this outside crap doesn't matter. And that's what I teach, is how to tap into that Wi-Fi, how to understand what we can do with our minds, because it never ends. It's so fascinating, the field of neuroscience. Mm-hmm. It's what turns me on in life.
Yeah. I mean, even to the point of, when an illness like that does happen, if you're mentally weak, it'll mentally take you over.
It'll devastate you. And that's what illness does. I've had people like, you're faking. You're faking. I'm like, I just faked all of those surgeries I just had. I just faked all of that shit. I got scars all over the place. They took 19 lipomas out. I mean, they told me I had breast cancer twice, because that's a huge thing in the 9/11 community. Because of all the crap that we ingested or whatever, men are coming up with breast cancer. So I have a scar here, I got a scar here, and it was all from lipomas that they had taken out. So we have to go for screenings for skin cancer, you have to go for screenings for liver cancer, you have to go for screenings for all this stuff. I could walk in, somebody would be like, you're going to be dead tomorrow. Okay, I'll still have a smile on my face. I'm not going to wait for tomorrow. I'm going to understand today. And that's what I've been doing. Before this, I was just listening to like some stoic stuff. It's like how you shut everything off and just be. I'm not worried about tomorrow because that's just theory. Because simply you don't know if you're going to make it. You know, God forbid something happens, somebody's listening, right? You go out, walk in the street. I like to use the extremes, right? Because I've seen the extremes. When we were kids, my cousin's house got hit by an airplane. There was an accident, two planes collided, and it went into my cousin's house. The fuselage went right into her house. Granted, everybody got out or whatever, but the next door neighbor died. He was sleeping, and a plane hit his house. I don't mean to laugh, but I mean that's life.
Yeah.
So get this right. This is it. This is the game. This is the magic trick. This is the sauce. Understand those emotional attachment that you have to all your sad stories, because that's all they are sad stories. What I like to tell people is, look, you can want $1 million or need $1 million, right? And I can need 1,000. But if you only have, 999,000 and I only have, $999, we both share the same experience, the emotional attachment of being screwed, right? So if the guy's living in a mansion and something happens, he's going to have that same emotional attachment, that same physiology that you are. So you have to control this before you get the mansion. I've given keys away to houses, cars, just walked away from numerous times. Been bankrupt twice. Been broke more times than I like to remember. These lessons have taught me something. They taught me that the only thing that I can do is take command of this, because the whole world is going to come at you. Like I said before, whether you want to participate or not, that shit's going to come up.
Yeah. Out of all those times of the bankruptcies, the going broke multiple times, what do you think, what was the biggest one that stood out to you? And do you think was the biggest shift to project forward?
The biggest one is, so we started a company. We were like one of the first online repositories, owner finance, lease purchase properties database, right? So we were going around the United States with these real estate expos and explaining how everything is the contract. This is after the hurricanes, right? It's a couple of years after we started this company, OFRE, Owners Financing Real Estate. So we'd buy booths and we'd buy tables and we'd go to all these real estate conferences, and I'd speak in front of, these people, the setups at real estate expos or any kind of expo. You got these little classes and then you have the expo behind.
Yeah.
Long story short was that startup cost me about $400K that I lost because we didn't understand. Like, I was partners with a computer guy, and I thought because of the computers, he understood marketing. He was a computer guy. And it ended up where we were taking listings for properties, right? So we're the database. We only took the VIG. You paid us a little bit of what the transaction was in a finder's fee, let's say. That's how we set it up. And it landed on deaf ears because we didn't understand marketing. This is when, like, 2005, 6. So the internet was there, but not really as popular. Long story short, a buddy of mine comes up to me and is like, listen, man, you can come into this company and you can get, for $1, you can get a hit to your website. This is what they were promoting. So we started understanding how this worked. And for $1, you got a view on your website. Back in the day, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Long story short, what these guys were doing is like, if I put up $1 for you, I got $1 back. And it progressed into, we're taking credit cards and be like, you know what, I'll give you 10,000 because I'm getting 10,000 back. And what the company did was, it was like, whatever you have in your till, they'll give you like 0.03% of whatever money came in that day. Long story short, I'm making $7,000 a day on it. Until the Justice Department came in and said, these guys are crooked. These guys were one swoop, lost $750,000 cash. That's 3 years after I just lost 850,000 cash. And it was years after I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there's a time period of like 5 years where we lost a lot of money.
And then the 08, 09 crash.
08, 09 crash, man. If I'm not mistaken, it was September 18th, 2008, where it melted. It was my birthday. January of 2009, we were walking through Houston Airport, me, my wife, and my daughter moving to Mexico. And we ended up living in Merida, Mexico for 7 years. 7 years, because statute of limitation on 7 years. Came back to the United States, and I was going to launch this book, Everybody Pays a Vig, and I was going to start my speaking career in a different way. And that's when I started getting sick. So I've been battling that for 8 years. Got the book out, started speaking again, mostly online. Yeah.
Wow. So that's a lot. Like I think your one piece of adversity trickled into,
Kept going, man. Just kept going.
Right. It's like you said, adversity, life's coming at you whether you like it or not. And I think people experience adversity and they think, oh my gosh, this is the worst. Well, it's the worst for you. And yes, that's right. But everybody has the worst for them.
Absolutely. That's what people don't understand. If somebody trips and falls and gets a broken leg, okay, that's devastating to anybody. That could be the most devastating thing that ever happened to somebody. So you have to meet them where they're at.
Exactly.
I've done a lot of work with vets. A lot. My father was a flamethrower in the Marines during Incheon and Chosun. So like I grew up in the middle. This guy was this living legend, man. He was a flamethrower at 17. His job was to burn down villages, right? So I'm 17 years old and I'm whining, bitching, and complaining about girls. And he's just like looking at me like, like you can't understand. He started talking to me different after I was a responder to 9/11. Because you understand. I don't know what it's like to go to war, but I understand what it's like to clean up a bombing campaign.
Right. Right. And so with that being said, like everybody's model of the world, their adversity and their experience is their experience solely. And that adversity can hold real estate in your mind, right? Rent free. How do you help people, or how would you suggest people try to rebound from that, whatever their experience is? What is what is a fundamental thing for you?
It's taking off the Band-Aid. You have to, and I've had conversations with psychiatrists and psychologists, and they're like, you can't do that, man. Like, no, that's what you do. That's how the human mind works, right? The mind doesn't know the difference between fantasy or reality. It doesn't know the difference between 20 years ago or now.
Yeah, that's actually facts. It doesn't.
It doesn't. It has no clue. All the RAS wants to do is please you, though, right?
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about these miserable experiences, like I was going through stuff when I was a kid that little kids shouldn't have to go through. Okay. And I walk off stage, people clapping and all this other crap. And I used to think I was a piece of shit because I wasn't dealing with myself as a child and what kids shouldn't have to go through. So when I started dealing with that, all the emotions started to change. When you're able to look at the wound, you mentally clean it, understand it, talk about it, realize that this is just a story. Let me understand emotionally what the triggers are going to be, and I can work on the trigger. Because you could trigger people easily. If you know somebody and you know something that devastated them, you can just bring up that story again and their physiology will change. Well, You can do that before a meeting when you know somebody's going to sign a contract.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's why songs can bring back memories, good memories,
Bells,
yep.
All of that stuff. And that's primarily what I show people is that once you do that, and I mean, I tell people that's why it's 1 out of 100, because you got to bring a box of tissues, man. We're going to go deep down into who you really are and understand. Once you understand that you're like the most powerful being in this environment, you start attracting what's already there waiting for you. And a lot of people don't understand that. Now, I tell people, they're like, well, what got you out of it? I'm like, psychedelics. 100%. I've done DMT, ayahuasca, like all of this stuff. And I believe that is what taps into your neurotransmitters. Because we lose when we're in dire stress, we lose connection to who we really are. And that's all I do is help people connect themselves to who they really are. And it's a fight. Don't get me wrong. It's hard. It's simple. It's not easy. Once you eliminate all of those outside influences, because most people are afraid to do things because they're in fear of what somebody's going to say. That's it.
Yeah.
Once you get over that, and it's like I said, it's simple. It's not easy, man. It's hard. It's hard. But once you do that work, you do that dark work on who you are, mentally in the dark, that's when the light comes. Once you turn on that light and that heart and brain coherence, man, now you're a beacon. And then you start attracting all these other beacons, and your whole life changes. Once your inside world changes, your outside world will follow.
Yeah. Your inside world changes, your outside world will follow. I love that. So let's go back to that Band-Aid method, right? Somebody's sitting in adversity right now. And they think this is it, right? I don't know if I should go forward. I don't think I'm ever going to get through this. Whatever the thoughts that are going through there, how do you help them understand, or how would you guide them to understand their emotional state, what it's representing, and how they can look at it from a different light to progress forward?
Whatever the emotional attachment is, right, has to be changed. Like, okay, so I can get serious now, right? So I was molested when I was a kid. So I never dealt with that. That's what I was talking about before. Little things that kids should not go through, right, is a big thing, because all we're children in adult bodies, right? The average person's like brain isn't developed until they're like 27, 28 years old. That's why we do all of this stupid shit when we're kids, because we're fearless, right? And what happens is, and this is what I tell people, is let's have a conversation. You close your eyes. You think about something that you want to do, okay? And I'll watch for the eye flutter. And as soon as the eye flutter, okay, what were you thinking about right there? Now you have to be honest with me, or else I can't help you.
Right.
Be like, oh, my father molested me when I was a child. But okay, what do you think about that experience is hindering you, because it's something entirely different than what you're telling me you want to achieve? Does that make sense? Okay. We're going to work on that. Your father or your mom, your uncle, your cousin, whatever, right? We're going to work on that. Once you work on that, once you really like rip that Band-Aid open and you focus on that, it's all we're going to focus on. Then we're going to start getting into like how we get into tapping, how we get into understanding why your RAS always brings the shit up, because it wants to please you. So now once we put a little ointment on it, right? We're going to look at it entirely different. Now that wound is going to start to scar. Once that wound starts to scar, okay, now it's there forever. You'll always think about it, but it's that time period that you think about it. It's that split second, right? As soon as you think about it, boom, you have something else to think about. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, we all have, everybody has like you said, your brain's not fully developed. You're like 25, 26 years old, right? And so everything that's happening between 07, 7, 14 is basically forming our belief system, right? And our protection system and everything that we know to believe to be true, right? And so I have experiences from my past that I recently found. Why am I this way? Why do I operate this way? Or what holds me back from this? Right. And took a deep dive into it, found out what it is, and really sat on that and then tried to understand that. Why, what about that is affecting you? And then coming to peace with it, like you said, starting to put the ointment on, right? Coming to peace with it, forgiving the situation, knowing that it is a situation, but knowing that you can now be different because of it. You can now
So
that manner.
I just want to stop you real quick, right? So the forgiveness has to be for yourself, not that person.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
That's what it has to. You
Yeah.
have to. Not I want to, I need to. That just means you don't have it, right? You have to forgive yourself. First and foremost, once you do that, everything is easy. You just passed the simple part, and now you're getting into the easy. And I've had people like, hysterical crying, breaking down, and all the shit that goes with it, because it's emotions. So once we get out of our emotions,
Well, what you're doing is you're peeling back a layer that's been so protected from right from the subconscious mind for so long, and it's actually one of the 6 prime directives of the unconscious mind is to protect those aspects. And you start to open that envelope, yeah, it's a given where there's emotion, but people have to go through that because everybody has a trauma of some form of manner, and again, everyone's experience is their own experience, and it will be the worst experience that they've had personally, but their trauma has to be opened in order to heal and for you to forgive and understand why you operate. And then now once you know how you operate, you know how you can go change it, right? You know how you can change the directory of that. And I think that is absolutely huge, especially when you are facing an adversity, knowing how you operate and then looking at the adversity as face value. Like you said, life is coming regardless. So looking at it as face value, what lesson can be taken from this and how can I understand it so the next time I don't make it, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
It's very simple. It's just really hard. It's not easy, man. You start tapping into shit that like you've had pressed for so long. And it's like, oh, they start thinking about, oh, this is why didn't happen. Like I tell people all the time that like, I'm glad that certain things didn't happen in my life the way I thought they should have. In the time period I thought they should have happened. Because it just would have went all over the place. It would have been a mess because I was mentally not there. I used to change geographical locations. Right? All the time. I'd be like, oh man, I'm going to change this and I'm going to change that and I'm going to change it. And I get my ass beat mentally because that place changed me. Right?
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, I can't believe that. I just went through this experience and then this experience and this experience and this experience. It's like, you just shake your head. Like, when is it ever going to end? We're all going to the same destination. We're all going to be dead. And we came into this world naked with nothing and we're going out with nothing. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like I listen to people talk about like, oh, when I retire, right? When I retire, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Okay, you're focusing on this event and you're fixated on it. You're going to miss from the time you're talking about this to that event. You're going to miss everything in between, the process, all the things that you've learned.
The journey.
That whole quest that you're looking for. And the youngsters, man, they want it quick, they want it fast. One thing I want to share with your audience, right? Like, so I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he's like, we got to get back into, teaching real estate and all this other stuff. I said, okay, I'm gonna teach them how to do something entirely different than what everybody else is doing, because that's what you need to do, right? Like we used to make lists, right? Call lists. Like we used to make those call lists because we used to do the work. We used to go down to the county courthouse. We used to get all like the things that are in foreclosure, the banks and all that, and we used to sell those lists. Now online, people can get lists, buy lists all the time.
Oh yeah.
I'm like that's dumb. Okay. Because what you want to do is you want to go actually literally to the courthouse and befriend the people that are actually putting those out into like the legals, into the newspapers and stuff. So then this way, whatever is going into the newspaper has already been picked through. Right? So that list, as soon as you get that list, it's outdated. So I tell kids now, look, you want to have fun with this stuff, man. That's what it's all about, is to have the experiences. So if you're in a major city, drive 2 hours out to some little bank, little county, right? Go to county courthouse, get a relationship with people, because this is what we're missing, right? Because everything is on the phone and computers and Zoom and this, that, and the other thing. Actually get the relationship. If you like somebody, bring them a lunch, cordially, like, listen to what they're talking about. They will call you up as soon as somebody comes in and be like, hey, Craig, you want to? That's the human connection. And it's going to make you feel good. Yeah, contacts, man.
Contacts equal contracts.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You have all the friends in the world on social media, this, that, and you need thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands. It's nothing compared to Margie calling you up every time the tax liens are coming up. And yeah, it's priceless.
Yeah, 100%. I think relationships and contacts is something that the modern nation is missing when it comes to building their empire and their business and their journey.
I listen to kids like, oh, and you watch these kids, they're making gazillions of dollars, man. They're like hustling stuff across, counties and states, all from the computer. They're buying shit, flipping stuff, all of it. And then they're miserable. It's like, I made all of this money, I'm miserable. I remember when I became wealthy, it was like, I want to go somewhere. And my friends were like, I can't go. I got to go to work. And I was like, why the fuck did I do all of this, man? Then I started getting into self-sabotaging behaviors and shit that goes along with it. And you have to have a relationship with money. I had a very piss poor relationship with money. And money never got me off. What got me off was always exceeding what I was looking to do. I used to have people tell me, oh, you're never going to amount to anything because you don't have a formal education. I was actually beating them. and this is something that people deal with all the time. You become very wealthy financially and be miserable. See it every day.
Yeah, it's your blueprint for money, right? Your money blueprint. There's so many things to pull and unlayer there with that. Craig, what would if you could just guide three people, like the three must takeaways to get to the next level, because there are so many people that are stuck where they're at right now, whether it's 100K, 50K, 300K, 500, right? There's so many people stuck where they're at right now. What is your advice for them to evaluate to get to the next level?
So the biggest thing now, right? When we were coming up, everybody wanted to be a millionaire. Well, in real estate, you become a paper millionaire. Right? I know to this day, as well as myself, when I was going through what I was going through, I was a paper millionaire and I was broke. And people are like, how can that be? Well, if you have a bunch of properties and they're not producing anything, you're looking at the equity side and all the paper, and it's like, on paper, you're a multi-millionaire. Or a thousandaire, like the kids call it, a thousandaire or whatever, right? How to get to six figures. It's like, stop concentrating on that nonsense. Understand that this is a lifestyle change. Everybody, I want to be a millionaire. Most people don't have the balls to be a millionaire because they don't know what it takes, right? All they think is quick. Everything has to be fast. And they're watching these guys with the Lamborghinis and the Benzes and all. It's all nonsense. That shit can be rented, right? Understand that. You see somebody in a big house, it's like, man, he could have been shooting that for the day. Probably spent some money and just to shoot and be like, look at me. Don't concentrate on that. Understand the process. Understand who you become during the process. And if you don't like who you're becoming, change. If somebody is saying your behavior is becoming a nuisance, change. Look at that person that's telling you, right, that what you're thinking about is nonsense. I mean, realistic nonsense, not just like trying to belittle somebody, none of that shit. We don't do any of this stuff for bad. It's always for good. You want people to uplift themselves. Be around people that are motivating, inspiring, but most of all are executing. Because people can talk all day long. Motivation, this, that, it means nothing if you're not executing on ideas, right? So you have to straighten out, first and foremost, this. Understand who you are. Understand the things that trigger you. Work on those triggers. That's first and foremost, before you even buy a house, right? But understand the language. You can't really buy a house because you controlling the contract, right? That's all you're doing, really. is because somebody always owns the house. You'd never do because you got to pay property tax, insurance. So there's always a VIG that you have to pay. Whether, one of the biggest things you hear about is, oh, I want to be financially independent. I want to be financial free. Okay. What does financial freedom mean to you? Most people would be happy if they had $1,000 or $2,000 a month more than what their bills were. They'd be happy as long as their bills are paid. So I tell people 5 houses will change your life. 5 houses literally would change your life. If your needs are met financially, your base needs, your living expenses, right? Where you live and all of this, you've won the game. Because it is a game. It's a game. It's a game that keeps score. Mentally, you have to constantly survive mentally, and then you'll be able to thrive. What I realized while I was sick was I was surviving and I wasn't thriving. So if you have an illness, and a lot of people have a mental illness, right? Because they're triggered into all kinds of nonsense and bullshit. This is first and foremost, like you said before, like we've been discussing. This is the real estate that you can own. Everything else is a bonus. So what I would recommend first and foremost is get your shit straight. Get your mind correct. Do things while you're getting your mind correct so you understand the process. And then execute on the ideas that you have with mental clarity. This could take you, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. It depends on who you are. How many fires that you could put out mentally is really important, right? I thrive in chaos, pandemonium. I'll just start thinking that, okay, this event happened. So how do we survive and thrive during this event? I don't have to tell you, you've been in the military. It's chaos everywhere. Look at the stuff that's going on around the world now. There's so much nonsense in the outside world that people are fixating on. I'm not trying to be callous, but all that shit that's on the outside world, it's not
Quiet it down. Quiet it down.
Shut it down. Shut it down. Nowadays, if you want to escape life, all you have to do is shut your phone off. That's it. That's the simplest thing in the world. Shut your phone off. Be like, oh, well, I'm not going to be able to answer my text or my phone call. So what? Do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Get people pissed off at me if I don't return their emails. Check the emails once, twice a day. I got 12,000 unread emails. I'm just me. That's not affecting me. I'm sorry. Call me. I'm a phone guy. Call me up. No, just text. No. I've had hand surgeries, man. That shit bothers me. Call me up. You could squash so many things if you just confront. Want to. Or people will send texts like late at night, 1 o'clock in the morning. I get a text 1 o'clock in the morning. How come you didn't answer me? Because my phone was over there and I was sleeping. Whatever happened, right? Somebody told, well, so-and-so died. Okay, well, I can't do anything for them. Right? So-and-so's sick. We just had to run them into, okay. Now let's deal with the problem.
Yeah. Execution, I think, is huge. And I think the biggest takeaway is just understanding the most valuable piece of real estate here is your mind.
Mindset.
Right? And if you want to go anywhere, and if you want to have an amount to anything that you are actually desiring, you need to master your mind. And if you don't master your mind, you won't master your desires.
Yeah. Plain and simple. That's it. Plain and simple.
Yeah. Well, Craig, thank you so much for coming on today. I mean, we could have a 4-hour, 5-hour conversation here easily. Where can people and everybody that's listening right now and wants to know more about you, where can they find you?
CraigSotkovsky.com or Everybody Pays a Vig, One Man's Entrepreneurial Journey. It's on Amazon. But one of the things I want to tell everybody is, look, nobody laughs or cries in a different language, so be nice.
Mm.
We're all here fighting just to survive. And it's like, just slow it down a little bit, man. Just calm down a bit. Understand who you are emotionally. And that's the takeaway. Just get this shit right, because this is the only real estate you can own, like you said before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Craig, thank you so much. Everybody that was listening today, that was huge. That was huge, right? So the biggest takeaway is understand your mind and go execute on developing your mind. Go execute on what you want. Understand you and who you are. And everybody listening right now, I want you to know that you were born to do something. You were born to be special. You were born at this time, at this place, to be exactly where you are, to do the exact thing you were meant to be. And so it's time for you to step into your confidence. Thank you guys for tuning into another episode of the Success Shift. Craig, thank you so much.
Appreciate it, buddy.